Broadcasting from the Keep Moving Forward Creator Studio, it's time for the Keep Moving Forward podcast. Join us every week as we dive into the stories of remarkable current and former athletes that have transitioned into the real world. Now here's your host, Katy Galli.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to the 149th episode of the Keep Moving Forward podcast. I'm your host, Katy Galli. Today in the Keep Moving Forward Creator Studio, I have with me founder of Spark Systems and former Ole Miss Soccer Player, Anna Sparks. How are you doing, Anna?
I'm doing awesome. How are you, Katy?
I am doing great. Thanks so much for stopping by and sharing your story with us.
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity to be here.
Of course. So just to kick things off, I wonder, where did you grow up and how, if at all, was your childhood shaped by athletics?
Wow. Okay. So actually, I was born in Indianola, Mississippi, but moved pretty early on. I think we moved to Arkansas when I was about 4 years old. And so spent the majority of my life, I grew up in Fayetteville, Arkansas. And I took to sports at a really, really early age, especially soccer. Mm-hmm. And I started playing soccer at probably age 4. And then just continued on and just knew that I was super passionate about the game. And yeah, so continued playing all the way up through high school into college. I ended up getting a full ride to the University of Mississippi, to Ole Miss, where I did my undergrad in exercise science, and then actually came back and got my master's degree in exercise physiology at Ole Miss.
Wow. So, I mean, from that young age, when you discovered soccer and you fell in love with it at 4 years old, when did you decide that you wanted to take it to the next level, wanted to go to the collegiate level to continue your career?
Yeah, pretty early on. I remember the soccer in Arkansas wasn't that it wasn't that it wasn't great, but there just wasn't a ton of opportunity in Arkansas. And so I remember early on wanting to be able to go out and play in these bigger tournaments all across the country. And our team that I was on didn't really do a lot of traveling and stuff. And so I remember seeking out opportunities to try to get on some of these teams as a guest player so I could go to these bigger tournaments in order to be seen by college coaches, but also just to play at a higher level and have better competition, better players around me, because I knew that would be the way that I could grow and develop in the game.
Yeah. And so, I mean, making that decision and to really go all in with the sport of soccer and wanting to play at that high level, having that passion develop on your heart, was there ever a time where you felt drawn to a different sport or down a different path and then you had to make the decision to go all in with soccer? Or was it once you found soccer, that was it for you? You fell in love and you were on that path for good?
Well, actually, I did play a lot of other sports. I played basketball for a bit. Wow. And I also I ran track and cross country, and I actually decided to get into cross country. My cross country coach at the time, her name was Nanette Mitchell, and she was really like kind of a pivotal character in my life. And actually, she was just so supportive and so motivating. But she told me to come out and use cross country just to get in shape for soccer because she knew that that's what my love was. And so I ended up coming out my freshman year for cross country, and I was a freshman. There was a senior on the team who had been very, very dominant and was actually committed to going to school on a track and field scholarship. And I remember being introduced at the very beginning when I first started running cross country. Our coach introduced us to someone, I can't even remember who it was, but this is Juliana, our number 1 runner, and this is Anna, our number 2 runner. And I remember that set with me, and it didn't sit really well. And I was like, hey, well, hold on. Why am I number 2? We haven't had a competition yet. Let's wait, Yeah. So I ended up learning so much from that senior, but I ended up winning the state championship my freshman year in cross country. And that was, it was something that I knew that if I was just smart, that had a little bit of speed at the end. So as long as I sat in and kept a really high pace, that I knew that I could finish strong, and that I would hopefully win. And so I ended up going on and winning that year. And then, I was like, okay, well, this has been fun. I continued running through my high school career and actually getting probably more scholarship opportunities from track.
Wow.
Than I did from soccer, but soccer was absolutely my love. And so I just continued to run just to, like I said, to kind of stay in shape for soccer.
Yeah, that's awesome though. I mean, to hear that and have that stick with you even now, remembering hearing you're in the number 2 runner and you're like, well, you don't actually know that, and proving that wrong and stepping up when it was needed. So then having those scholarship opportunities though come in for cross country as well as soccer, even though you loved soccer, was there ever a thought that maybe you might want to try and go to college and play both of those sports, or was it really just the only aim was soccer and you didn't want to entertain splitting your time between 2 different sports?
Yeah, I didn't really even entertain it much. I knew that I loved soccer, and that's where my passion lied. And I remember telling my parents, I actually moved from Arkansas to Georgia when I was, let's see, I was maybe 14, about to turn 15. And I actually moved in with a family in Georgia to play soccer for a team out of Atlanta. And so my parents actually ended up turning over legal guardianship so that I could go to high school in Conyers, Georgia, and play soccer for this club there. And so I actually moved away from home early on and just told my parents, if you allow me to have this opportunity to play with these better players, I promise you that I will get a scholarship to college and you won't have to pay for my education. And so that was, at 15 years old, a pretty big ordeal. And my parents have been so supportive of my entire life, have been so supportive of me. And even though it was extremely difficult for them, they allowed me to go. And I ended up signing a full ride to play soccer in college, and started at Ole Miss in 99.
Wow. That's amazing though, that at 15 you saw that as an opportunity, and then your parents seeing that path that you're on and wanting that success for you so badly that they would turn over legal guardianship so you could go and continue to pursue this soccer career.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, man.
Got pretty exceptional parents.
Yeah, it seems that way. That's awesome. So from that time then, so you started getting scholarships for cross country and soccer, and knowing that soccer was that path you wanted to pursue. So what made you decide on Ole Miss?
Well, so, it's funny because that Ole Miss was the only school that I looked at, besides Arkansas, anywhere really close to home. And the reason being that I ended up choosing Ole Miss was because it was only about 6 hours from my parents. And so since they allowed me the opportunity to move away and go to school in Georgia, they said, Anna, would you give us 1 year somewhere close to home so that we can come and see you play for at least 1 year? And I thought, yeah, you guys, let me do this. So sure, I'll do that. And so I decided to, after doing all of my official visits on the West Coast, thinking that's where I was going to go, I ended up deciding to go to Ole Miss. And I just thought, I'll do it for 1 year. And then I can always transfer and go out on the West Coast. And after that, my freshman year, we were really good. We had won the SEC West. And, I was like, wow. We have a really good team, really strong team. There's a lot of great players here. And so I decided to stay, and I ended up finishing out, all 4 years, started every game of my college career, and had an unbelievable time. It was so much fun. And by the last year, my senior year, we were ranked top 25 in the nation. Dang. And so that was a big deal. It was a pretty young program at the time when I started. And so we went a long way.
Yeah, that's incredible. And so, why though were your sights initially set on the West Coast? Is that where an athlete would go if they want to, excel at soccer or join a competitive soccer program at the college level?
Yeah, there was just a lot of schools that were out on the West Coast that were super intriguing to me that
Yeah.
had, been powerhouses. And I just knew that I wanted to go somewhere maybe where it was a little bit warmer. And
Yeah.
also there were just certain coaches that I was very attracted to that were at some of these schools on the West Coast, and that I really thought, I want to go play for that coach. And so, yeah.
So and I mean, that makes a lot of sense. During that process, that recruiting process, just having the opportunity to go visit these different schools and then thinking, okay, I'll start at Ole Miss, and then you had the opportunity to transfer, but you actually gave it a chance. You gave Ole Miss a chance and realized the competitiveness of the program, and that you could help it grow too in your time there. So making that decision. So when you were at Ole Miss, the experience that you had, what would you say is the most memorable game that you played in, or the most memorable experience that you had as a soccer player?
Oh, wow. God, there were so many.
Yeah.
You know, oh gosh, what would be the most memorable? Um, I mean, the one that comes to mind is going to be my last game. Let's see, last game of conference play my senior year. We were in the SEC tournament. We were in the finals, and we ended up. Let's see, who were we playing at the time? It ended up coming down to a penalty kick, and we had a girl on the team that we typically was our go-to for penalties, and she looked at me and was like, "Ann, I can't take it." And so I was like, "I'll take it." And so I stepped up, and I ended up missing the PK. And at the time, I thought that was our last game, because I wasn't sure that we would get into the tournament, into the NCAA tournament. And so I remember going, oh my gosh, my entire career, that's the last thing, like the one thing that everybody's going to remember and that I'm going to remember, and us seniors, going out. And then we ended up the next day, getting a bid to the NCAA tournament. And so that took us down to Florida State to play. And we ended up losing that game, but we were played them super close.
Yeah.
And and so probably after that game, I remember my parents drove from Fayetteville to the game to Tallahassee, and I mean, they drove for a couple, I can't remember how far. And I just remember my mom and dad, my mom looking at me and just busting out in tears. She's like, I can't believe it's over, because they really didn't they barely missed any games. When I made that commitment to go into Ole Miss, they said, we'll make sure that we are at as many of the games as we can to support you. And so I just remember that moment going, wow, okay, those 4 years, it's over, and what's next, what's going on now. So, yeah.
That's amazing to have had your parents be able to go to all those games and support you. I mean, have that support system around you so that when you did finish that last game and you had that realization that it was all over, they were there to pick you up. But then when you had that moment of, breaking down, realizing it was your last game in organized athletics, what was going through your head? How did you prepare, or were you prepared to make the transition, out of college and into the next phase of your life? Did you anticipate trying to continue your soccer career, or did you have your sights set on something else?
Well, actually, there was the women's pro league. It was called WUSA at the time. Had just folded.
Wow.
And so when it was about to fold. Let's see. I can't remember the timeline, but it was. I was going, okay. Do I want to go on and play? Do I want to go into? They had a draft or whatever. Do I want to go into the draft and continue playing, or am I gonna do something different? And at the time, I just knew that there was no way that I could come back in that spring semester and not be able to play with the team, because soccer's a fall sport. And so when you finish your senior year, you're done, and you don't come back in the springtime because they want to make sure that, the underclassmen are getting a lot of attention and stuff, and you're no longer, so you're not really part any longer. And I knew that would crush me. And so I actually decided my freshman year, first semester, I took 21 credits, and that's what I needed to graduate.
Oh,
and so I actually graduated a semester early.
Yeah.
And so right after that last game of the season, I had already had a job lined up in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And so I left Ole Miss at semester, and I moved to Tulsa, Oklahoma, and started working as I was a high school soccer coach there and a personal trainer at a gym. And like I said, it ended up that the Women's Pro League folded. And so there was really nowhere else for me to go and play. And so I ended up moving to Tulsa. I worked there until about probably, I was there maybe like 9 months, and then decided that I wanted to go back for my master's degree. And so I actually applied to several different master's programs, but ended up taking the position as a graduate assistant strength and conditioning coach back at Ole Miss. So I moved back to Mississippi, back to Ole Miss, and took the job working in the weight room, but also I was living in a bed and breakfast, and I was the night manager of a bed and breakfast. So every day, I would wake up, I would go into the weight room at Ole Miss, and I worked with I had the linemen. My teams were the linemen for football. I had women's volleyball, and I worked with baseball. And so I would work in the weight room from 5:30 a.m. until 5 p.m. and then I would go over to take my classes for my master's program. And then I would go home after that back to the bed and breakfast, and I would get all of the breakfast and everything prepared for the next morning, get all of the sheets and towels and everything washed and cleaned up, and go to bed and then start all over, the next day. But what that did was it helped me, I was able to put money away. And then when I finished my master's degree, I was able to go ahead and start putting out feelers for jobs. And so those jobs ended up being, I put out some applications in strength and conditioning and in soccer. And just realizing that I really missed the soccer. I really enjoyed the strength and conditioning, but I really missed the soccer. And so I applied for the soccer position at the University of Arkansas as the assistant soccer coach. And I ended up getting the position, being the youngest coach in the SEC. I was 22.
Wow.
So when I started coaching at Arkansas, I was coaching some of the players that I had just finished playing against.
Yeah.
They were seniors, and so that was interesting. Some of them were even older than me. But Gordon Henderson, he was the head coach. He believed in me. He's like, nothing better than having a local girl who knows how to recruit here, knows the area. And so he had a lot of faith in me and gave me an opportunity to, be the assistant coach. So when I started at Arkansas coaching soccer, I actually still lacked an internship on for my master's degree. So I did the internship in the weight room at Arkansas.
Wow.
And during that time, that was really awesome. I had women's golf, and I had women's gymnastics. And then I would work in the weight room in the morning and then go to my full-time job with soccer, at about 9 a.m. every day. And so that was a really great time as well. I learned so much at Arkansas and worked with some really incredible people.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it sounds like it was, truly just so much fun. And, but it was dependent upon you being open to all these different opportunities, just saying yes, walking through those doors, doing whatever it was going to take to help you get to that next level. And so when you realized that soccer was what you really missed, you were able to go to Arkansas. You were able to just walk through that next door of opportunity because you knew that that's what you wanted to go do next.
Yep, exactly. exactly. So when I was at Arkansas, I kind of went in on the 3 to 5 year plan.
Mm-hmm.
I would be there for 3 to 5 years and really learn as much as I could, and then hopefully move on to even a larger university, maybe even another SEC school, or maybe somewhere out on the West Coast. And so I ended up taking the job coaching at Arizona State University, and so that moved me out to Phoenix,
Mm-hmm.
and that was super fun too. Moving into a different conference, I knew the SEC inside and out. Right before I took the job at Arkansas, I did an internship at Auburn University in their strength and conditioning department. And they had at the time about 14 Olympian swimmers that were training for trials. So I got to work with those swimmers in the weight room. And Auburn at the time, they had just won their third national championship in swimming. They were, exceptional. And so that was a really cool opportunity as well. So then I get out to Arizona State, move into a new conference. At the time it was the Pac-10. Now it's Pac-12. And, started doing all the recruiting, out here in Arizona. And that was a really cool experience too. Learned a lot.
Yeah.
But then I just decided that I still wanted to be competitive myself. And so I ended up, I had been doing a little bit of triathlon, and I really had taken to the bike. And so being, with soccer and stuff, I naturally had a pretty big engine, and it translated on the bike to power. And so I actually started racing bicycles, and I got road bicycles. Ended up getting called into the Olympic Training Center, got picked up by a women's pro team, and then started racing road bikes professionally. So, yeah, it was
Man.
that was something that was pretty cool too. I just I go I have enough money put away that even if I just take 1 year and race, and I don't make a dime, that's okay, and let's just go for it and try it out. And 1 year turned into 6 years that I raced on the women's circuit. And that opened a lot of doors, a lot of opportunity. But it also allowed me the opportunity to really utilize my education. And with my master's in exercise physiology, everything that I knew from school, I could apply to myself, to my training, to my nutrition, and all of that. So, so I actually started working for a company that utilized metabolic testing to look at metabolism.
Mm-hmm.
And then once we did the testing, we were able to provide training and nutrition plans mainly for athletes. And, maybe it was a cyclist or a triathlete or a runner. And so I was able to do that, work for that company, and coach a lot of athletes even while I was racing myself.
Yeah.
And so that kind of led me to where I am today, in that 3 years ago I started my own company called Spark Systems that we are a health and performance coaching company that utilizes baseline metabolic testing in order to provide nutrition and movement prescriptions. So
wow.
Yeah, and now not only we don't just work with athletes though, we actually work with more general population.
Yeah.
So I was coaching a primary care doctor that was an athlete. He was getting ready for a big cycling race in Utah. It was like a 200-mile road race. And so he came in for his metabolic test, and we did his resting energy expenditure, and then we did his active metabolic test. And afterwards, I'm going over all of his results, and he's like, Anna, how can I get this in my clinic? He's like, my patients are living longer, but their quality of life is so poor.
Yeah.
How can I get your system, in my office? And I was like, wow, I've done this for athletes for the last like 10 years, but it applies to everyone. And so 2 months later, we opened in his clinic, and we see a lot of diabetics, a lot of overweight, obesity. We see a lot of hypertension, high cholesterol, people that really they really need help, and we know that just by addressing their daily nutrition, we can really change their lives. And then we get them moving, and then teach them how to breathe properly to combat that stress and anxiety. And we're changing people's lives every day.
Wow.
So it's super fulfilling.
That's incredible. I mean, the path that you took to get here, starting off as a soccer player, then growing in the world of coaching, and having the perspectives too of not just soccer, but being a strength and conditioning coach for all manner of sports. So being exposed to different athletes, and then two, having the realization that not just athletes need this, what you've created, but the general population, a regular person, a person who just wants to be fit or get healthy, live a life to their fullest, they need that too. And so being able over time to have all these different experiences, and then creating something to bridge that gap specifically.
Yeah. It's so fulfilling. I mean, I feel like this little company, we're going to impact the world. And, I want to, make as many connections and just impact as many people as possible.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, absolutely. So with Spark Systems now, from where it started to what it has grown to become, who are your main clients, your main people that you're focusing on, and what exactly, how are you approaching them? How do you go after them?
Yeah, so, we are really focused on people that meeting people where they're at, and identifying what is their why, so that could be an athlete who says, I'm training for a big competition, in a couple of weeks, to, a diabetic, a type 2 diabetic that says, like, I just want to be able to sleep at night, like my blood sugar is through the roof, and I don't sleep well, which means that now I can't play with my grandkids because I'm so tired all the time. And then also we work with a lot of, executives, corporations that are looking for, sustained energy, and that they don't have that. They have that mental acuity. We keep their, mental clarity high. So we work with a wide variety of people, and literally we have done very, very little marketing. It's been very organic up until this point, because we have been going into different markets to see who's open and who's ready for something like this, because it's using science. It's using science to identify what the intervention, needs to be. And we want to create the most efficient human beings possible, So you first identify where they're at, and where they are in the stages of change, are they ready to go? When you speak with athletes, they're always ready, but when you're working with, just more general population, like they may need a little bit more time, they may need a little bit more support and coaching to get them there. They know, deep down that, yes, this is probably something I need to be doing, but it's on their own time. When they're ready, then we're here, and we'll help them.
So when you do come across that, so you're meeting people where they're at, and then but you're using this science idea to identify what this intervention needs to be for this specific person. So like you're saying, when you come across athletes, they're just ready to go. They want to know how to better themselves. But when you come across a person who maybe needs a little bit more time, needs more education, how do you approach that kind of person, and how do you bridge that gap to show them that Spark Systems is something that they do really need?
Well, so it all starts with that baseline metabolic test.
Yeah.
And we can visually show them what they are prioritizing for fuel, So are they carb dependent? Are they fat dependent? And at what point do they change over from utilizing fat to utilizing carbohydrate? And we can see that at rest, and we can see that during activity. And so a lot of times, even just starting there and showing them visually, hey, this is what's going on. Like this is data for you. And then we create those individualized programs that are just addressing their own data. And knowing too that this isn't just a, hey, come in and get tested and we're just going to hand you a report and say, see you later. No, like you come in, you get tested, we're going to provide you that custom intervention, and we're going to be there with you every step of the way. So we have we assign a metabolic health coach to every person that we work with, and they are that guide. They are the one that stays with that, with that patient or with that athlete, and helps them, is their support system, and is also educating them along the way. With the testing, I created some software that will overlay their data as well, so that we can, when they come back in for retesting, we can show them that improvement. We can show them how we have changed the prioritizing of fat, or prioritizing fat over carbohydrate in order to optimize blood sugar, essentially.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
that's really cool. And so when they go through that testing, that initial testing, and then you have this data that shows them, hey, look, this is what is reality. This is what's happening. And so then you have a coach assigned to them with their custom intervention. So is this coach, do they meet in person or is it remotely? How does the next step in the process work?
It's both.
Okay.
So if it's someone that we're working with that's located here in Phoenix, then they definitely will meet with them face to face. They'll meet with them right after they do the testing, their initial test. If it's someone that we're working with that is remote, then we typically do like a Zoom or like a video conference, so that we can see them face to face. Yeah. And sometimes it is done by phone. If they don't have access to, a computer, then we can speak with them over the phone. But yeah, it's something that creating that relationship, in the very beginning, and having that respect there, and just knowing that, hey, this person, like, you're looking at them, they're here with you, and they're gonna help you, in your journey. So yeah.
Definitely. I think that's so key, especially with any goals that you set for yourself with regards to fitness and just getting healthier, having that, that community around you, those people in your corner, and specifically accountability partners. So having a coach along with you, looking at you and showing you, hey, I'm here with you, and actually walking through that process is so key.
Absolutely. We also, we have begun creating, just you just hit on something, creating a community for them. So we have a lot of, we will do educational webinars, and those educational webinars, right after them, your metabolic health coach comes on and does a live Q&A. Wow. Well, you may be on the line with, 10 other people, 20 other people that, on that live Q&A, that will maybe bring some things to light, that you hadn't been thinking about. And so everybody's getting educated together. But it also, now you've got that community. You're not alone,
right?
And they're able to communicate via. We have an app that we use, and they can all stay in touch. They use Facebook, our Facebook page as well. And so, like, say that you are, you do have type 2 diabetes, and you want to speak with other people that have type 2 diabetes to know their, the path that they've gone down, and their success and failures, and how that you can support each other. And so that's been extremely powerful, having that community.
Yeah. So it's knowing too, not just that there's a coach along with you to help guide you, but there's people who are walking that same path that you are on right now, knowing that you have that shared connection. And so you're kind of in it together. You're on this unique team that you've built through Spark Systems, but they know that they're essentially, they're just not alone.
Yep.
So just this, it's amazing, this thing that you've built over the course of a couple of years. So is Spark Systems now your full-time job, or are you still coaching soccer or doing strength and conditioning coaching?
So I don't do any coaching. I don't coach soccer any longer, nor strength and conditioning, but I do still coach a lot of cyclists, mountain bikers, triathletes,
Wow.
and runners. And I have other coaches that coach with me.
Yeah.
And but we also have a lot of metabolic health coaches that just do work with those ones that aren't they're not the athletic ones. But what is really pretty cool is that we've had several people come through our program that have not been anywhere near being in that category of being considered an athlete.
Mm-hmm.
And since being in our program, we now have progressed them along where now they're going out and they're either walking a 5K, running a 5K. It's actually a goal, that they have. And so they've moved from someone that wasn't moving at all to now having a goal of, jogging a 5K. And so they kind of moved from that, what I would say, kind of some of our clinical, patients move into now more of our performance clients. So that's been pretty cool.
Yeah,
pretty cool to see.
That is really cool. So when they come in, it's like they can graduate into a different, like a next level.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Yep.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
I love
and that's
that.
our goal, that's our goal is just to help them. Like I said, you meet them where they're at.
Yeah.
And then, you just help progress them along, and things that they never even thought were possible are now because they feel so good. They feel awesome every day.
Yeah.
And we do truly believe that everybody deserves that opportunity to feel awesome every day.
Yeah. Yes.
So.
I really love that. Everybody deserves that opportunity. That's definitely, I love that. And so with everything that Spark Systems, and you have grown with and created with Spark Systems, what's next for you guys? What do you see on the horizon?
Wow. Well, I do see, us being able to branch out a bit more. So we are right now located, we have a couple places in the Phoenix area that we do our testing. And then we actually have one place in Detroit, Michigan. But I see that as being probably the next step, that we begin to add more locations where people can come in and get tested and work, with our metabolic health coaches, and then being able to grow. So kind of being set in Arizona now, and then looking at the neighboring states, and then, moving to the rest of the country. That's kind of our plan. And we're not driven by, we need to make a lot of money. We just want to impact as many people as we can. So however that looks.
Yeah, I like that. Just expanding, but also being open to the idea of maybe not knowing what exactly that might take the form of, what that looks like. It's just continuing to impact the lives of all sorts of people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
exactly.
So Anna, with all of this this really incredible journey that you've been on, and saying yes to these different opportunities, walking through those open doors, and knowing still that there's so much left that you're going to accomplish, both with Spark Systems and as a coach, and personally and professionally. I just have one final question that I ask all of my interviewees. What do you want to be remembered for?
Oh, wow, I love that. I want to be remembered for being a good person, but what that means to me is being a really good wife, being a really good mother I have a stepdaughter, being really, really good in my community, and being a really good friend. But yeah, that I, showed kindness and cared for a lot of people, and that would be my dream.
Thank you all for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. To learn more about our guest, check out the show notes at keepmovingforward.us. While you're there, go ahead and subscribe to our newsletter to stay up to date on all things coming out of the Keep Moving Forward Creators Studio. Always remember, you can beat the odds and go the distance if only you keep moving forward.